Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers collapse in the second half and they get blown out by San Antonio. Defense is starting to slip. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always going to be free. It is never going to be behind a paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 27,000 subscribers, Andy, all of whom are wondering who exactly this team is. The Lakers lose their third straight, collapsing in the second half of their game against San Antonio. 126-102 the final score. Obviously a lot going on in this game in terms of emotions, in terms of what's happening in the city and playing for fans and honoring first responders, honoring Michael Cooper. There was a lot going on in this game, and we'll talk about some of those things over the course of the show. But the bottom line is, in terms of the game itself, the Lakers were just throttled in the second half, and they lose this one big. Want to let people know that today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So I know we talked, Andy, for Monday's show, kind of wondering, how they would play coming out after a long layoff, but a layoff that isn't really a layoff because, yes, they're practicing, but there's also the added stress of what's going on around the city, the impact on their families. JJ Redick, obviously, his family with their home quite literally burning down. Their initial response at the beginning of the game, I thought they played solidly, certainly played a solid first half, turnovers notwithstanding. The initial response was pretty good, I thought.
Look, I'm not in these guys' heads, and I don't want to make a sweeping, definitive judgment about what guys were or were not feeling, if for no other reason than, again, I'm not in the locker room. That being said, it feels to me like using the backdrop of what's happening in LA, while I'm sure it is affecting all of them, because there's not a person on the Lakers that feels, on this roster that doesn't feel like they're a decent person. So the idea that they are not affected by this at all is a stretch. But the idea, to me, at least the way this game played out, that they were too distracted by what was going on in the city, frankly, feels like a reach. And I would hesitate to go there because I feel like it could cheapen what is actually going on in this city that is so horrific that we've all been dealing with. It doesn't feel to me, based on the way the game played out and where things fell apart and why, I would very much hesitate to say that this was too much for them to play through.
Yeah, and I that certainly wasn't what I was trying to imply.
I know, but I just wanted to make that clear.
I think the closest thing you can get to that, and that's sort of why I said, all those things, the basketball itself, they got blown out in the second half of this game. I think, you could certainly see the fatigue on JJ Redick after the game.
Yes, absolutely.
And the exhaustion and all of that. And you could maybe say they just got tired out in the second half. I don't know, but it doesn't, and I think, for our purposes, the focus is on what do they do on the court? They can explain for themselves, and will, and they'll talk about it. And none of them are going to look at, none of them are going to say, we just couldn't, they're not going to use the challenges and that the people are facing, around the city as an excuse and hide behind that for how they performed in this game. And I think when you look just at the basketball, the disturbing trend for the Lakers, who have now lost 3 in a row,
two straight by 20 plus points.
Yeah. and suddenly find themselves looking more again, because they had what was it, a 6-game streak, and put themselves up to near 4th in the conference, and now they're back to 7th, and they look in these 3 games much more like the team that was struggling, that we were all wondering, here comes the train, and it's not good, than they did like the team that was dominant defensively and helping them to a nice win streak. They gave up 36 points in the 3rd, 37 points in the 4th. And so you're talking about, what is that, 73 points? Like, that's not going to win you many games. The defense that had been a calling card for this team has certainly slipped, and slipped badly in the second half of the game on Monday.
Things really fell apart for the Lakers with 2:43 left in the 3rd quarter. The Lakers at that point were up 10. They turned the ball over 6 times in the 3rd quarter, but they turned it over 4 times in that 2:43. And they ended up in the 3rd quarter at an 89 all tie after, again, with less than 3 minutes left in the 3rd, being up 10. And then they just never got themselves back on track in the 4th quarter. I thought they got increasingly sloppy and careless as the game went along. Like, I know San Antonio, their defense has improved a lot over the course of this season. I know Wembanyama is always somebody that you are going to be wary of in the same way teams are wary of Anthony Davis's presence. I think this was more about the Lakers, frankly, relaxing. And we've seen them make a habit of inexplicably relaxing a lot during games. And that is not uncommon of teams. Like, you and I have covered championship teams. Believe it or not, the Kobe Powell teams used to relax all the time. The difference is they were good enough to pull it off. Like,
well, I think all teams, I guess it depends on, and I don't want to, get into a deep game of semantics, but like, what I would ask is this: like, when you talk about relaxing, do you mean relaxing in the sense of like an arrogance, like we are really this good, we got this, like no worries, like you're sort of almost like dismissive of your opponent and inflating yourself, or relaxing in the sense that, because here's where I agree with you, the Lakers, especially as they are constructed right now, must always
getting at what I'm getting
a rigid focus on dotting every I and crossing every T on every offensive possession.
That is
every
what
defensive
I'm
possession.
About.
And losing. So you're talking about, I would define that as a losing of focus. Like, but in that sense, relaxing, totally understand.
I'm defining relaxing.
Yes.
I'm defining relaxing, and to me is it's a very literal way of putting it, which is you don't feel an urgency. And I think that this is a group that often loses a sense of urgency when they're on the floor, and they are not good enough to just crank it up whenever they want to. Like I said before, you and I were, boots on the ground coverage of the Kobe Powell teams. And, even with Kobe there, the most intense of competitors this league has ever seen, those teams would relax too, including at times Kobe.
Sure.
The difference is, though, they were good enough to crank it back up at will when they really needed to. This team is not. So they need to play with a sense of urgency for 48 minutes. And there's other specifics to this as well. Like, JJ mentioned the defensive slippage over the last 3 games. I think it directly coincides with the Lakers falling back into more of the switching everything automatically and passively, no questions asked approach defensively, which sucked then and sucks now. And I've been seeing more of that. I've heard JJ recently even talk about like the ability to be more of a switching defense. And I just don't, it's not even so much a mechanical thing for them, even though the mechanics and approach matter. I think it leads to a mentality with this group that doesn't work. They are a group that are both not good enough for anything that could be sort of a shortcut, or also disciplined enough to even pick their spots with shortcuts.
Yeah,
and they look for shortcuts.
Yeah.
I think execution wise, they look for shortcuts on both sides of the ball, and they're not good enough.
I will tell you, I think I don't. After the break, I'll respond to that because I at the very least wholeheartedly agree with half of what you're saying. So we'll talk about that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC, a makeover, a little treat. And for a lot of people, decluttering and refreshing their personal space helps them get back into a routine. It's the feng shui that everybody seeks out. And whether you are tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, fresh energy, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. And if you're looking for furniture and you can't just seem to land on what you want, check out the huge selection that Wayfair offers. They make it easy to find the piece that will fit your style, my style, everybody's budget, and they're helpful. They will help you with this process. Best part is the free hassle-free delivery for even larger items. And Wayfair's site makes it easy to navigate. You'll find everything you want in no time. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
So, I think here's where I definitely agree with you because you and I have had a little bit of disagreement. And by the way, reminder, sign up for the daily newsletter, lockedondaily.com. You go to Locked On Lakers, click there, have the podcast along with other NBA, another more analysis from around the league delivered to you every day. Great way to keep up the league, keep up with the podcast. And if you do it directly from a podcast, we really appreciate you doing that. So thank you. And also check out the postcast with Dave Palais after every game night. So where I 100% agree with you is offensively, absolutely think they look for how did you describe it? This sort of least
shortcuts.
Shortcuts. Thank you. I think offensively, they're really getting stuck on that. And that in part is why they are not the offense isn't improving a ton while the defense starts to backslide. The turnovers, which both cost them possessions and put them on their worst possible defensive footing, got I think it was 9 per half, which is too many.
They have 19 total, like including team
felt like more. I know they had 9 in the first half, so.
And they gave up 25 points to San Antonio in the process. I remember there was one point with, I think, 3 minutes left in the first quarter. All 5 starters and DFS, the guys who at this point had played more than like 3 minutes to that point, all had at least one turnover. LeBron, who was not good in this game at all, had 7 turnovers. Austin Reaves, who was not good in this game at all, had 4 turnovers. And when your 2 primary ball handlers are basically going with 1-to-1 assist turnover ratios, that in and of itself is problematic for what you want to do.
Well, I wonder if you can start, and I realize they just traded away a guard. But I wonder if at this point you can add to the list of the Lakers' needs a third ball handler and a third playmaker, because teams, particularly
the third guy's Gabe Vincent. He had 3 turnovers.
Right. But he's not.
I'm just saying he's the
right.
Next
he's not that
guy
you have. He only had 1 assist. He was 1-3.
Yeah,
that's not. That's Reaves is 2-1 looks a lot better than that. Even LeBron's, essentially 1.12 or whatever to 1 looks better than 1-3. The Spurs did a really good job of being very aggressive on the ball when either LeBron or Reaves was on the floor without the other guy. And the Lakers just become very easy to pressure, whether that's losing, losing time on the shot clock to be able to run something effectively, or turning the ball over, or never really getting into something. They're just so easy to pressure and slow down and muck up because they don't have playmakers and ball handlers to help relieve some of that pressure. And I don't think that means that the trade wasn't worth it, but it does point out what we said at the time that they made the trade, which is the trade-off is this. And so they have to figure out how to solve that problem. The irony of acquiring Dorian Finney-Smith and trading away D'Angelo Russell to then use the trade deadline to acquire another guard. Depending on who that guard is, it could be an upgrade. It could be you put yourself right back where you started. But that was a weakness that was exploited by San Antonio on Monday. And, Reaves was hounded into a very inefficient night offensively. You mentioned the turnovers from LeBron. I mean, Anthony Davis, I thought, did yeoman's work offensively, but he didn't get much help.
He got into early foul trouble too. He picked up 2 early fouls. Anthony Davis had the best game, I think, of any Laker, but he also, the first 3 fouls he picked up in this game, maybe the 3 worst fouls of his career. He picked up one away from the ball, like in the first 15 seconds. He picked up another one on a 3-point shooting foul. And then he picked up a third going after an offensive rebound on an incredibly ill-advised 1-on-3 transition 3 from Dalton Connect. God, that was a bad shot.
I
hope that goes down as the worst shot of Dalton's career because it was just
that one. He's not going to like the way that looked on film.
And look, Dalton made up for it. Like the very next play, he got a transition and 1 dunk that I believe he forced the turnover on, or he grabbed the defensive rebound and
that
ran.
Said he wasn't very good.
But like AD because of foul issues only played 12 or 13 minutes in the first half.
Yeah.
Like
32 minutes overall. But you know what? They got through the first half.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things I was going to mention. This is why I think a lot of this has to do with not maintaining their urgency, because during the season, we've seen usually they struggle badly when Anthony Davis isn't on the floor. And AD, because he picked up a 3rd foul, didn't play for like the last 4 minutes of the first half. And they actually went from up 8 when AD checked out to up 9 to close the half. So, and that's without their best player.
But like you mentioned before, the Lakers were up through most of the third quarter.
Yeah.
So they came out of the locker room. And
San Antonio got back in a little bit, but then they pulled back out.
Right. That happens. Yeah. I mean, that's the ebb and flow. San Antonio's a good team.
Right.
I know I've talked them up. They're 19-19. I've talked them up more than maybe some of it. I think it's, they got off to a slow start. I think it's a good team, and they're only going to get better over the course of the year. It was that last, like you pointed out, that last 3 minutes or whatever, the third quarter, where they started to get really sloppy. The turnovers caused the defensive collapse, and then they couldn't tighten it back up on either end of the ball. But I'm not going to of all the people that you could, I'm going to blame some of the people in this room. I am not blaming Anthony Davis. I am going to give Anthony Davis an attaboy for I agree the foul trouble was not great, but 13 of 18, 13 points, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 30 points. I mean, other than maybe you could say didn't get to the line enough, but that, that's not totally under his control. Anthony, Davis gave them 30 points, but you know what? We had this discussion when the Lakers, I think it was the Dallas game. You need a certain amount of production from the big 3. And in that game, none of them really provided. But in this game, you still ended up with 60 points from those 3 guys. And on most nights, 60 points from LeBron, AD, and Reaves is really in the danger zone of not going to get it done offensively.
You are threading a needle if it's just 60 from those.
You got to do real solid work on the defensive side of the ball to get through a game where those three guys provide you with 60 points. And then, we'll talk about it this week. What do you do with Jackson Hayes? What do you do with Cam Reddish? What do you do with Connect if his offense isn't going to be there? Christie gave you 10. Not a lot of peripheral stuff, but he gave you 10. And you're just not going to win a lot of games shooting 14 of 44 from three-point range. That's too many, 19 turnovers and 30 missed three-pointers. That's a lot of open possessions. And even though that, I think AD, in particular did a pretty good job crashing the offensive glass, that's still just too many empty, scoreless possessions. The offense is terrible, and it's putting a ton of pressure on the defense.
Yeah. And speaking of the defense, as we mentioned, there is that slippage. Like I said, I think they are falling back into some bad habits. And I also feel like it is time for JJ to press a button, and talk about that coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to live events, not necessarily tonight's Lakers game, but for the most part, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy, like one of my best memories of 2024, Hamilton on Broadway last spring with my family. It was an amazing show. Plus my daughter got to meet the entire cast after the show. They were all really nice. She took selfies with them. Like, her friends were really jealous. Like, it was a pretty fun time. And Game Time has made it easier to get tickets for experiences like this with the new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out all of the fluff, so you just see incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste your time sifting through nonsense. And they've got offerings like panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what it's going to look like towards the stage, what your surroundings are going to be like. The app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front, so there's no surprise fees at the checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Hungry Root. Like many of you, I am a busy person. I've got 3 children. I've got couple jobs, and plenty of things to do that aren't cooking, that aren't getting meals ready and all that kind of stuff, despite the fact that I really do want to try to eat healthy, model good eating and all that stuff with my family. Don't always have time to go to the grocery store, end up eating out more than I want, all that kind of stuff. And one way to address that issue is Hungry Root. It can be a real game changer. It is a great and easy way to eat healthy without stress. With Hungry Root, it is like having a personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. They take care of the grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries, and all that stuff based on tastes, health goals, whether it's for me and my family. You can talk, high protein stuff, low fat, gluten free, if that's something that you need for your group. Best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, delivered right to your door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating for our family a lot simpler. And the food tastes really good. That's important. The recipes are easy to follow. So you're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. And for limited time, you get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out.
Real quick before we get to the defense issues we were alluding to, I just want to make sure we acknowledge the one bright spot of this evening, which was Michael Cooper's jersey going up into the rafters. It was a great ceremony with Magic and Pat Riley serving as the Jersey Lift MCs. They were both great. Michael Cooper's speech was really awesome, really heartfelt, funny at times. You had Byron Scott and Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon, Vladi, all these different Showtime luminaries. Michael Thompson was obviously on hand. He's calling the game for ESPN LA Radio, the Lakers radio affiliate. Like it was Worthy was there. It was really, really great. And it was awesome to see like such a beloved member of this franchise's history get that moment. I wish the team had done their part to make it a perfect evening, but that piece of it was really, really great.
Yeah, for sure. And Coop, I know we've had that sort of discussion about like the Hall of Fame for role players, and like the current Hall of Fame structure doesn't let role players get in unless you happen to be such a souped up version of that. Like, Michael Cooper, I guess, qualifies as a role player of sorts. Manu Ginobili, maybe, if you really want to stretch the definition.
Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green, when he eventually gets in.
Ben Wallace, guys like that. But they were also just, they were so good at one. We just tend to think about defense as a role as opposed to, not equally as important as everything that happens on the other side of the ball. It was so great to see the closest thing you're going to get to kind of a role guy, a selfless player who certainly could have done more on another team with his own numbers and his own stats, get that kind of recognition. And he is so well loved, not just by, his former teammates, but by the Lakers community. And it should be noted too, has been a very successul coach.
Yeah.
Outside of that, both the G League level, won a title in the WNBA, and like so. Yeah, so there is more to it and that's the Basketball Hall of Fame takes that into consideration. But it was really cool. And
there was also
Cooper, if you ever get a chance to meet Michael Cooper, please do so, because he is a just tremendous human being and a wonderful guy to get a chance to say hello to.
There was also I thought a really poignant moment when he mentioned, quote, "This is such a bittersweet moment after the week we just had," but then said, "But we're Angelinos and we're going to build back better." And it dawned on me as he was saying this, like Michael Cooper is an LA native. He grew up in Pasadena. Pasadena is right next to Altadena.
Pasadena City College, I think, for a couple of years.
It's been affected by this, and just hearing that from Michael Cooper with this backdrop, I thought just added an extra layer of emotion, because that he's feeling this for this city beyond his relationship with this franchise. This is his home.
No question about it. So that part of the night was cool. As our friend Kurt Heelan at NBC noted, the Lakers didn't necessarily honor Michael Cooper and his contribution to the NBA, which was on the defensive side of the ball with what they did following his speech. But that is neither here nor there. Andy, you had a button you wanted the Lakers to push.
I think it is time for JJ to flip DFS and Rui. Put DFS into the starting lineup, play Rui off the bench. Because I think it will help the team get off to better, not just defensive starts, but also I think more of the urgency that they will need to start halves. That's something DFS will always play with, that level of energy. But also too, like on a night where Rui takes 6 shots, makes 3 of 4 from behind the arc, like 9 points, but his involvement keeps decreasing, in part because he is at best going to be the 4th option with this group, and sometimes doesn't even get the same looks as Christie spotting up. I just feel like you're going to get more utility from Rui and more opportunity to actually use what he's best at coming off the bench. The Lakers bench has been a an issue with their lack of production all season. It gets exacerbated because D'Angelo Russell isn't there, both as a source of scoring, but at the very least, a source of facilitating. And if you're going to have to, at times, rely on the bench to create for themselves, it feels like that is a better spot for Rui. And DFS, I feel like, fits more of a direct role starting. And again, the defense itself, like, that's not going to fix the defense just by itself.
No, but it will help, and it will help LeBron.
Yes,
because the other part of, I think, the defensive issues is particularly as games go on. Again, the Lakers were perfectly fine in the first half of Monday's game, and they were actually pretty good through a lot of the third quarter, and the collapse defensively started actually with their offense, I think. But broadly, I'm going to read you a couple numbers. You may already know the answers to this, but I'll still do it out loud for the exercise because not everybody listening may know it. Rui played 28 minutes against Houston, 26 minutes against Dallas, and 30 minutes.
I know the answer.
On Monday again.
I know the answer.
You know which stat I'm getting at, though?
Yeah. I'm going to give you the answer before you even ask the question.
Okay.
5
rebounds. That's right. 5 rebounds in well over an hour of basketball.
that is not getting it done.
6'8", 245 pounds.
That is not getting it done.
That's not getting it done.
No.
And it's
not
like,
at all.
He's got 3 assists. I mean, Rui has never been confused as a guy, piling up the dimes. It's not really what he does.
No.
But
it's
if
never been referred to as magic at any point in his life.
If you're not getting the rebounds and you're not providing any assists and you're not providing points, 9 points on Monday, 6 points against Dallas. He had 13 against Houston. But that's just not good enough.
He's getting completely overlooked right now.
There's nothing for like the role he's being asked to play is really a better role for Finney Smith, who is, I don't want to say, Rui is still shooting the ball pretty well, but like offensively, it's a lane that he would fill better.
Right.
He supports LeBron better defensively, and it's just
at this point.
I agree with you, Andy.
Yeah, at this point, I don't feel like it really makes any sense. If you're going to be bringing in DFS for the type of role you want him for in the first place, particularly when you don't have enough playmakers on this team right now, period, much less to filter them around in the second unit where maybe a theoretical D'Angelo Russell or whoever comes in to replace D'Angelo Russell, whatever, can set up DFS. Like, if you're using him primarily just to spot up, he can do that with the first unit, providing more defensive integrity. And Rui can be a guy that when he's playing more with those second unit guys, you can actually feature him because he's going to be able to score against a lot of second units.
Now, is the second unit of Rui Hachimura and like Dalton Connect and all this going to be an adventure defensively? It is, but it's already going to be a problem. So
I was going to say, as opposed to what?
I agree with you. It was last week we did some episodes, or might have been the week before. The last week has been a bit of a blur in terms of remembering what we did when. But you certainly advocated for it. I agreed with you that ultimately this was going to be where the team needed to go anyway, and so you might as well get it done. But I think Monday's game really revealed some of this, particularly as you get deeper into the season and you're going to start leaning on your starters to play bigger minutes. You can cut down a little bit on what the bench is doing. You get Jared Vanderbilt back. Now, look, this could mean that Rui's minutes get cut down considerably, that, maybe it means that suddenly he starts getting squeezed. I don't know what this looks like.
I don't know, because right now I would play him ahead of Dalton anyway.
I would too, but like the trade deadline comes around, you get Jared Vanderbilt back. There's a little bit of positional redundant. Like, I don't know. Like, certain guys play more, certain guys play. D'Angelo Russell went from 30 something minutes a game to 20, and like this can happen when the needs and the chemistry routine changes. And obviously too, we're getting towards the deadline when that shiny contract of Rui Hachimura, if you're going to acquire somebody who makes a lot of money, it's almost certainly going to have to be included in it. So I don't know what's coming. I don't know what the Lakers are going to be able to pull off. I remain skeptical that the cavalry, that there's even a deal put together that would kind of let the cavalry come, so to speak. But yeah, I agree. Push the button.
Yeah. I think also you're starting to see, and I'm not going to lie, considering reasons notwithstanding, because they're tragic, the fact that the Lakers have had this many days off and LeBron had the defensive effort that he had tonight, I found a little alarming.
It's not sustainable. Like what he was, you need to protect him more, especially if you're going to be in a situation where he is one of 2 ball handlers on your team.
Well, and also too, it's another reason to put DFS in there, because you're not just looking to protect LeBron, you're also looking to offset Rui and the defensive issues. And I mean, this night, to say that Harrison Barnes was looking at Austin Reaves,
they found that matchup, didn't they? They need, teams, they need to have a counterpoint when teams make, and again, Vanderbilt back, and it looks like it'll be sometime next week, maybe before. It's not going to be this week, Redick said. We'll talk about it a little more for tomorrow's show. But, the euphoria of the long streak is certainly died down. And, for all kinds of reasons, this stretch that they were in that seemed like an opportunity has been, the upheaval around it. While understandable, they certainly got to work their way through it. So we'll see what happens. We'll be back tomorrow. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. So we can go hang out with over 27,000 subscribers to the channel. Please sign up for that newsletter that we keep pointing out there. We'll see everyone tomorrow.